become more tractable, better workers, less likely to become radicals. Exactly the opposite of what Wilberforce is saying. The learning we communicate is only intended to enable you to read the scriptures and see that it's the will of God that you should be content with your station. In fact, people are taught to read. The idea here is that people should be taught to read, not necessarily to write, because what would these people have to write? Right? They need to read the scriptures to understand why they are who they are. And Horace Mann, the American educator, one of the the founders of higher education in the education field in the 19th century, writes that those who have been accustomed to exercise their minds by reading and studying have greater docility and quickness in applying themselves to work. So teach people to read, they'll be better workers. They'll do their jobs better. They'll understand their place in the world. They're less likely to become troublemakers and revolutionaries. Exactly the opposite point of view from what people like Wilberforce and others are saying. And in fact, if you look at what literacy instruction consisted of in 19th century American schools, it was all highly moralized. You have a reading book like McGuffey's Reader, and you have little stories like The Little Idler. There are some little boys who do not love their books or their schools to spend all their time in idleness and play. I will tell you a story of one of these, and needless to say, the story ends with that boy unhappy, the idle boy. In fact, this point of view becomes much more common even with regard to American blacks after the Civil War. So where people say, no, don't teach blacks to become literate, now you find people saying things like this, from Edward Ainsworth Roth, an American sociologist, 1898, the growth of nuance provided over by intelligence and culture is the best lever for raising the status of the idle, quarreling, sensual, ravishing Afro-American. Certainly the infecting of the backward portion of that race with a high estimate of cleanliness, neatness, family privacy, domestic comfort, and literacy is an agent quite as moralizing as the dread of future punishments or the love of an ethical God. Teaching them literacy will raise them from their squalid, semi-animal state and make them more tractable and so on. Sharply contrasting with what Mr. Auld and other people were saying about black literacy in the pre-war period. Not everybody believes this, and support for education among the freedmen, as they were called, the former slaves, was quite mixed certainly among whites in the southern states during Reconstruction. Nonetheless, what you see in this period is a real effort to create literacy among the literacy rate is like 5%. It's virtually inexistent among black slaves before the Civil War. Blacks themselves create schools. Those who are literate, for one reason or another, teach the others. Many of their students are the soldiers who had gone north to fight in the Union Army, to escape north to fight in the Union Army. There are schools in all of these towns. In addition to that, missionaries and missionary societies send white teachers to teach. And there's this program of each one teach one of throughout these states that gives them literacy as what some call the coveted possession. I don't have the date of this quote, or the name, you can go like this person, but it's in the 1870s, I think. With the children that are coming up, no white men will not be needed. They are learning to read and write. Some are learning lawyer, some are learning doctor, some learn minister, and reading books and newspapers, they can understand the law. So this is going on. And now, by the end of the century, the literacy rate among Southern blacks is still around 50%, and who knows, what that number actually means. It's hard to know what the degree of literacy was. But this movement has spotty but impressive successes in many parts of the South. By this time, in fact, people are talking about literacy the way we do. It's a good in itself. Literacy, as I say, is a proper thing for first ladies to take up because, who could argue with it? I mean, it's either literacy or don't do drugs, one of the other people. The word literacy itself, a word that exists only in the English language. Other languages, they can say, knowing your ABCs, like which they call sometimes alphabetism. They can say a literate person, which they usually say by something like this person's cultivated or cultured. They can say it's a literate text, which they use another word, but they don't use one word for all three of those things. That word itself is invented in the second half of the 19th century. 1888, the Oxford English Dictionary, because I found it as early as 1879. I think it's in there. Compulsory universal schooling is instituted. You've got this increase in immigration, and all of these immigrants have to become literate in English, among other things, and then urban immigration must be coming to the farms to the towns, among other things for the reformers, so that they will not be subject. If they're not literate, they'll just hand in ballots given to them by the political bosses. You want them to be able to think for themselves, decide for themselves, and not be for the health of the democracy. Women are coming into the workforce in extraordinary numbers. There are almost no women in business schools in 1870. 30 years later, there are 3/4 in business school. And this, I think I talked about this first. This has to do with the skilling of business work, the typewriter, the typing tool, a lot of other things. But this is going on. These women didn't have to be literate. They didn't have to be literate before that. The boss system, as I said, made both conservatives and reformers eager to create a literate public. And it becomes, not just in America but in the rest of the world, an indicator of modernity, of development. Countries all of a sudden vaunt their literacy rate as a sign of how developed they are, of how modern they are. People point as well to the value of literacy economically. Up to now we've talked in terms of political consequences, either making you tractable and controllable or making you subversive and giving you class consciousness. But people now are talking about literacy as a path to wealth and respectability. The Chief Superintendent of Education for Upper Canada writes in 1850, 1849, I know seen many people who rise to wealth and respectability by their industry, self-taught skill, but from their utter want of training in the proper mode of writing or speaking or reading their native tongue, they're unable to fit the circumstance. So if you don't know how to read and write, however skilled you are, you're not going to get on in life. A modern idea we all believe, but one that really takes shape in this period. Not entirely justified either. Lawrence Stone, in the essay that's an optional essay on the readings, points out that the literate English farmer of the labor of the late 18th century fared no better and possibly even worse than his illiterate companion. There was no social mobility, no jobs he could have taken anyway, so literacy was not an advantage. And even in 19th century Canada, a historian named Harvey Graff, not Henry Graff, who's a better known historian, did a lot of work on this and said that literacy among agricultural workers was a very poor indicator of social advancement. Becoming literate didn't really do that much for you, at least in that domain. One of the curious developments in this period is you get in America in particular a kind of passion for literacy, a culture of literacy that's expressed perhaps better than anything else in the institution of the spelling bee. Franklin may have been the inventor of the procedure, at least in his one of his letters. He suggests pairing scholars, let them strive for victory by each propounding 10 words a day for the other to be spelled, and so on and so forth. By the early 19th century, the spelling bee becomes a national mania. There's in 1875, midnight, 1875, 4,000 people attend a spelling bee at the Academy of Music in Philadelphia. There's a riot when one speller is knocked out for misspelling a word. People said, well, there's another spelling of that word. So in West Indian, people came to fisticuffs. There's a poem by Bret Harte about a spelling bee in Angel's Camp. People know Bret Harte, a comic poet of the 1970s during the Gold Rush. A spelling bee among the miners. There's a new game down in Frisco that, as far as I can see, beats euchre, poker, and Bantoon. They call it the spelling bee. Oh, my kids, my little pretty kids, lay down on your knees and pray. You've got your education in a peaceful sort of way. You want to know the rest, my dears? That's all. And bear in mind, the only gent that lived to tell about this. These people get into arguments with spelling, they're knifing each other and garroting each other, and so on. So these miners go. Only one person is left at the end of the spelling bee. It's a strange practice. I mean, the spelling bee is probably the only ritual of literacy that you can perform in the dark, right? Close your eyes and we'll have a spelling bee. Turn the lights on, have a spelling bee. Nobody has to read or write anything. It's all oral. And in fact, reflexive culture, what's the important thing is to be able to read rather than to write. Spelling is also, particularly English spelling, is a kind of lame achievement. I mean, Thomas Jefferson couldn't do it. I can't do it, so I feel this strongly. What do you have to learn? You have to learn a lot of stupid rules about how to, that don't make any sense, and just learn to obey the rules. The spelling bee persists, but in an interesting form. If you look at the Scripps Howard Bee, the national spelling bee that every year they make a fuss about. So I looked it up in 1925. The winning words were intelligible, fracas, gladiolus, and knack. Right? How many people here don't know how to spell? Didn't know how to spell. There was a K in knack. I didn't expect. If you didn't know, you're not going to raise your hand. That's easy. By recent bees, you had people were winning with words like euonym, opsomath. Anybody know what opsomath is? If somebody comes to learning late in life, if you knew obscenity, if somebody marries late, you would have known that. I don't know why. There are these bizarre words, and the kids who win them are these kids who have coaches and spend 40 hours a week studying for them and memorize lists and so on and so forth. What does it indicate? It indicates, I mean, is it a measure of success? Yeah, it's a measure of your ability to master arbitrary and senseless rules, right? Which is probably an important skill for success in American industry. Public libraries are instituted in this period. The public library, again, a characteristically American and to a lesser extent British institution. There have been libraries available to the public in various ways. Subscription libraries, everybody signs up and you get to use the library. In the UK, there's a Public Libraries Act in 1850 that establishes public libraries. What really gets it going is Andrew Carnegie. People I expect know Carnegie. There's certainly no Carnegie Mellon or Carnegie. A Scots immigrant, a penniless Scots immigrant who comes here, goes to work, I think, for a railroad, becomes a telegraph operator. It's interesting, like Edison, how many people begin as telegraph operators of these great captains of industry, or later, like David Sarnoff, who founded RCA radio operators. He funds ultimately what's to become U.S. Steel. He is, when he dies, some people say the second richest man in history. He has $500 million, which in those dollars is a whole lot of dollars. And he gives away about $350 million of those dollars, many of them to found public libraries in every town in Hamlet. 1,700 in the U.S. and 650 in the U.K. In most towns. And you got a Carnegie grant, you got the plans for a library, you got the money to build a library, but the town had to pledge that they would give 10% of that amount to sustain the library year after year after year. They didn't all come through. But even today, many of the public libraries in America are buildings that were built by Carnegie in this period. It was going to raise the economic level. It was going to make people better citizens, certainly. One of the people, as I say, who were involved in this often were people who were fed up with public education. It wasn't doing its job. To the free library, J.P. Quincy, whom I mentioned earlier, we may hopefully look for the gradual deliverance of the people from the wiles of the rhetorician and the stump order. People are going to go there, read books, form their own ideas, become literate, and won't be susceptible to demagogic appeals. That's the hope for the public library. There are reservations. I mean, most of the people who go to those libraries, a great many of them are women looking for these sensational works. The question is whether the librarians debate whether they should, these works about women who have affairs and so on and so forth. By the 20th century, though, literacy has become as I say, an absolute public good. And people start using the word now. So as early as the 30s and 40s, so really until much later that it becomes general, to talk about things like, the earliest example I find actually is from Bennington College, but they start talking about things like economic literacy, geographical literacy, arithmetic literacy, sometimes called numeracy, media literacy, and whatever, moral literacy, cultural literacy, which I'll skip, but that's the idea is just cultural, I'll tell you stories sometime. What does literacy mean? Well, it's a way of saying of a certain set of skills, that there's a basic form of them that everybody can learn. Everybody can become literate. It isn't like drawing or painting or playing the piano where some people can do it well. It's more like driving. Sometimes everybody can drive. It's coming in this morning, I would doubt this, but there's a level of success in driving that everybody can do that we can expect. The state is responsible for inculcating these skills. It's a matter of schools to teach literacy. And it's necessary to what? To economic growth, to personal betterment, we talked about that, to independent critical thinking, and to healthy public discourse. We're all going to be literate, so we will be able to have, the democracy will be able to function because we have a literate, informed citizenry. By a few years ago, people are starting to talk about first computer literacy and then information literacy. If you look at the arguments they give for information literacy, they're exactly the same as the arguments they were giving for literacy 150 years earlier, and they've been giving all along. It's personally empowering. It's necessary to the health of public discourse. These are various statements. It enables people to, I'm not going to read through these, achieve social and economic equality. It gives you economic, it enables your economic betterment and strengthens the economy. Every day, timely lack of timely information is costing American business, and it's really a term whose time has come. I only just mentioned before Paul mentioned the assignment. Paul and I both mentioned. I used to write a feature for the New York Times. I mentioned information literacy in 2016. Within a week, that had been translated into 18 languages. I never did a piece that was so widely quoted as that. Similarly, Paul was quoting the Times about something similar. He got a lot of. I'm rushing here because I want Paul. You quickly. I'm sorry, I'm going to load it.
Okay, very quickly. The assignment for Tuesday. You're going to be asked to read the statute of Anne, the first copyright law, the U.S. Constitution on copyright, the first federal copyright law, and two fairly brief newspaper articles. And the question is, the articles present a case for and against U.S. recognition of international copyright. Which argument is the most convincing? Which is most in keeping with the statutes and the Constitution? With your argument saying which side you think is the better argument. Extra kudos, and I'm going to get why I chose these particular newspaper articles.